Good morning, everybody, and a huge, big, warm welcome. My name is Beck Brown. I am super duper happy to be here with you for the first workshop in. We've got 4 workshops for this latest series. This workshop is brought to you by the SCU Postgraduate Association in conjunction with SCU Careers. We've got lots and lots of wonderful tips for you today, and please feel free, if you have any questions, just to jump in and to pretty informal session. We've got lots and lots to cover, and I'm going to get started. Before this workshop, I was actually thinking, more broadly, what is, I'm going to go through some formal things in terms of cover letters, resumes, interviews, and, the application process. But career success isn't just those formal components. Yes, that is success in terms of getting the jobs, getting through the hoops of getting the job that you want, but it's not necessarily the answer to a long and successful, and whatever success means to you in broader terms. So I want to kind of weave a little bit of that in today, so that we can think about our careers more holistically. A few little housekeeping things. Our wonderful team on the SCU campuses, Lismore, Coffs Harbour and the Gold Coast, they have dedicated career counsellors, career specialists who run 30-minute sessions, and they can help you on a whole range of topics. They can help you do, for example, selection criteria, which can sometimes be particularly challenging. We will cover a little bit of that, and we'll cover it in later weeks. They can do mock interviews with you. They can help you think about or make decisions or facilitate a process of finding the sort of work that you want, graduate roles, etc. Cover letters. They're an amazing team that are there Monday to Friday and able to help you. Before we dive into some of the, which kind of brings me to what I was thinking about before, is that yes, there's all those processes, but success, career success, lies in understanding who you are, managing what we call your professional identity, learning about what your skills are, what your nature is, your personality, your preferences for types of work, styles of learning, styles of thinking, problem solving, etc., and then how that fits into the world of work, but also and then communicating that to potential employers. And here's an example of a wonderful graduate who really, before kind of hitting the wall with his process, he didn't really understand how to tailor his application, which is a lot of what we will be talking about today. And that is about very specifically highlighting, oh, good, hey, welcome. Very specifically looking at or first identifying an individual, your own individual strengths, and then being able to communicate what makes you different. And this is absolutely critical, fundamental. It's a process. It's an ongoing process. It's not something that you're going to, well done, Alison, come to learn immediately overnight. But in all that you do, and if I come back to where I was thinking about how I would communicate career success to you, it is about that individuality that you communicate. Thank you, Alison, that you communicate to your potential employer, but also that you continuously communicate to the people around you in terms of your interest, your engagement, and demonstrating consistently, whether you're in a staff meeting, whether you're in, whether you're in a workshop somewhere else, whether you're doing some training, some work training, continuously thinking about those messages that you are communicating to others around you. So this gentleman, he just sent out hundreds, as you can see, 526, true story, 526 job applications, and he didn't get an interview. And then importantly, it's a shame that it took him 500 times. What we want to know is if we keep doing something, if it's not working, eventually we have to try something different. So he changed tact and he really focused on his unique selling points. If he were a product, what he's going to, amazing. Hey, some of you guys, welcome. Hey, Wilson. Hey, Maha. I'm so glad you guys are here. And 12 days between the final application. So he, in its simplest form, he tailored his application for career success. So how do we build? How do we learn about who we are? And I know that you probably came along to this session today to find out how to write a cover letter and how to do a selection criteria and how to do an interview. Yes, 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 yes. But you have to know how to put something different in there and stand out from the pack. So I could teach you, yes, you must put, your education in this order and that order and all the rest of it. But both the automatic tracking systems, which I'll share about more shortly, and the individual people that are reading your application are both looking for your achievements, but also to find out your suitability and your fit for the role. The SCU Careers team have some really good resources. I'll just pop it in here, www.scu /careers. They have some amazing resources that can help you learn more. You can take quizzes. There's all sorts of resources also online where you can learn more about your interests, your goals, your values, your motivation, your skills, and your personality. I would love to, we're a little bit limited in, but we've got time today. But more broadly speaking, I would love to run, like a whole session on just getting you to think about what your values are, a whole section on doing some hope mapping where we'd come up with some goals. But I think given that we've got a 2.5 hour class here, I would like to do a little bit of this. Our values is what gives us purpose and meaning, what is absolutely essential and important for us. And our values, our core values, they can change over time, but generally they don't. So you might really value learning, for example, ongoing continuous learning, and you might really value work-life balance, which is a really common one for people these days, because we know we can have a little bit more of that in our work. Value security. So they say new grads, the top things that they want is security and work-life balance, just as an example. Oh, amazing. We got you back. Thanks, Stephanie. So good to have you here. We're going to do a little bit of an exercise now, so I can not talk at you for the next couple of hours. I want you to think, just have a think about, if I were to go, hopefully you guys can see me, I can't see you. If I were to go into a interview with you, and I were to say to you, tell me 3 things that makes you a standout candidate. We don't even need to be specific. Tell me what they are. I'd like to give you just 2 minutes to think about that. In an interview, you won't have that time, but you will be prepared, because you'll know, oh, okay, they're going to ask me. Because one of the things, it's jumping ahead a little bit, but it isn't, because from the moment even before you get to that interview, whether it's old school style and you turn up to a physical location, or the communication that you have with them in the lead up to that interview, everything, all those touch points that you have, you are communicating who you are. All right. And so I want you to think about just 3 things, couple of minutes, about who you are, because you're going to communicate that in your cover letter. You're going to communicate that in your resume, your selection criteria, your interview, any other formal part of the recruitment process. 3 things that make you unique. And when you're ready, type them into the chat box. 3 things that make you unique and special. And sometimes it can, that's what I was going to say. The reason I'm asking you this question up front, other than the holistic thing, is that when people go for a job interview, one of the first things that they ask you, one way or another, is tell me about yourself. And the one thing that I have learned, or one really important thing that I have learned about the interview process, is that people hate that question and they freeze up with that one more so than anything. And I think it's cultural here, certainly in Australia, is that we're trained not to talk about ourselves. And so then there's in the Buddhists call it equanimity. So we want to come in at that middle place where we're comfy about who we are. We're happy to celebrate our achievements, but we still have that humility to remain open to learn. So tell me 3 things, and think about what your partner would say, or your children, or your friends, or your landlord. What would they say about what makes Wilson, or Kay Wilson, Maha? We've just got some acronyms here. Stephanie, Yilin. What would they say that makes you unique? Oh, we got one. Good. I want to see a couple more. Oh, adventurous. I like it. Nice. Couple more words if you can. Adventurous is a good one, because one of the top things that employers say that they want, there's something called the Big 5 factor model. They want people that are curious. And so, hello, Shivara. Hello. Shivraj. Joshi. Welcome. We're just having to think about what makes you unique. Oh, we've got some more here. Optimism. Nice one. Employers love optimism because your attitude has a huge impact on other people around you. So I love it. Well done. Stephanie, supportive. Amazing, because we must, doesn't matter if we're in IT or in retail, we have to work with other human beings. And the best way to help other people, the best way to network, is to help other people. So that's amazing. Detail orientated. Nice. Determined. Good one. Oh, love it. Thanks, Maha. Multicultural awareness, critical. Australia is one of the most multicultural destinations on the planet. Oh, sense of humor. And listening skills. A procrastinator. Oh, that might be one of the areas where we could look to, we can develop procrastination. Do you mean proactive? We're looking at strengths. Excellent. I've got some great ones here. Good listening skills. Very hard to be, we've all got so much to say. So I love it. Anybody else like to add anything else? Nice. I love those. So it's very likely that before you, when you get into it, when you're first in the interview, is that they will ask you, tell us about yourself. Oh, handsome. Oh, I love it. I love it. Fabulous. All right. So once you know a little bit about yourself, the next step is actually looking at what's out there. And when we look for opportunities out there, what we often do is we just get on to Seek or onto Jura or Career One, and we forget that, and this is super duper duper important, is that we get it's really easy. It's much easier to look for a job on Seek and then go, I'm never going to get a job, or I'm never going to get it. There's no jobs in my field, or nobody's going to employ me because I haven't got this or I haven't got that. And to be looking for work and seeking ongoing opportunities to excel our career, to find more mentors, to network with other people, to develop side hustles, to develop entrepreneurial activities, to find the job of our dreams. They are not found. Most people find their work through much less passive approaches. And the reason I feel really passionate about this is because I see the danger in, I guess, just having a Seek-eyed approach where you just look at Seek, and because these other ways are much, much more confronting. But in fact, they're the real ways that people get jobs, and they're much harder. But you will get a job much more quickly if you look at some of the other ways other than just lying on your bed at night scrolling through Seek. So our family, our friends, and yes, they're not going to have, that graduate position. They may not necessarily have that graduate position of our dreams in, in the top tiered accounting firm in Sydney. However, they may have a good job in an accounting firm that's close to home that for a short period of time gives you some rungs on the board, so that then you can move into that top tiered firm in Melbourne or Sydney or London or Hong Kong or wherever it is that you want to be. And so, and somebody said about being adventurous, and if you have keep an adventurous mind or an adventurous spirit around this and being curious about how you could find opportunities outside of that, and what else you could do in the meantime if you're kind of in a transition period. Because again, I see people get very singular in their approaches to work. So for example, I was just chatting with somebody who's got a tenured academic position in accounting, but that job's no longer serving that person. but then the money's good, and there's not, where this person lives isn't, as many opportunities around. But he has an idea of something that he really wants to do, but he doesn't want to give up the job that he's got. And what we are taught with our careers is that you should give up that job. Like if you want to make a change, you should give up that job and then, start that other thing. But in fact, what we can do is until we're really sure what we want to do, we can stay with that other job while the money's, while it's serving all those purposes. And we can dabble and play and explore and learn and develop that other work or that other job that interests us, whilst we still keep, because security is such a big thing and such a fear for us. And so what I have learned over the last 5 or 10 years working with people, and I've certainly really had to shift my own mindset around this, and also to shift the mindset of peer, all those around, is that work doesn't have to be this one perfect graduate position, or that's a Monday to Friday 9 till 5, particularly because work doesn't even look like that. A lot of it, not all of it, it doesn't. And I know that could be disappointing to hear. It's not that those jobs aren't there, they are there. But if we get really specific and singular, it's great to have goals, absolutely aim for those goals. But if we're not getting what we want immediately, we look at lots of different ways that we can enjoy our work, and find meaningful fun, all the things that we get to use the love of attention to detail or whatever it may be. So when you're looking for work, having what we call a multi-pronged approach. And again, I see like a real resistance, but this session is about career success. And there are many, many, many opportunities that exist under the surface. So on the top layer, the ones that are advertised in ethicaljobs.com or Seek are the, straighty 180 job, 9 to 5, I don't know, $60,000, $70,000 a year as new grads, what have you. But then underneath that, there's all these part-time jobs, casual jobs, project jobs. And yes, okay, it's not necessarily immediately going to pay your mortgage or what, but it can take care of things and it can lead you down another really exciting path. So for example, I was speaking to somebody the other day. He's worked in government agencies for a really long time. Long story short, it hasn't always been what he's wanted, and now work is more short term. But he was just saying to me that he's just finished on one project with a government organisation, and his main work is in marine sciences, but he's now started to move into land management because some of the principles are the same and he understands the organisation. And he was just saying to me how excited he's finishing on this project, and he's going to have another contract, and it only goes through until November next year. So there isn't that security. But he said to me, I'm really excited because he's going to be working with Indigenous people. And just, if work wasn't like the way that it is now, even in government organizations, if it was just, you got this 3-year contract, I saw this real lightness in him. And he's worked in government organizations for, I don't know, his whole career since he did his environmental science degree. So I saw this real lightness in the way that he talked about his work. So whilst there's some negatives about the way that work is and the opportunities, if we can learn to find, because there's things we can't change about the world of work, in that, employers are moving to shorter contracts, part-time casual work, all that sort of stuff. But if we can learn to navigate it in a way where we can make the money that we want, to do the sort of work that we enjoy, then it can be a really, really, really rewarding time whilst we work within the scope of what work looks like. So up the top left here, we've got SCU, career sex, all the sort of main ones. Then there's all sorts of industry. Once you get get your sea legs in your profession, and we'll talk more about that. There's all sorts of webinars and seminars and conferences and workshops and free training, and you'll find out some of those by in a few weeks' time. We'll be doing LinkedIn, and once you start to get, a couple of hundred people in your LinkedIn, you'll find that and if you start to tailor the people that you connect with around the field of work and where you're heading, and that changes, of course, then they will all you'll find that they will be posting things about part-time work, casual project works, meetings, fun things that are going on, etc., ways to connect with people in your field. Memberships, associations. So, for example, I'm a careers educator here, but there is a professional there's a professional body called the Australian Careers Association. I have a membership there, and there are conferences, there are seminars, and that membership, whether you join memberships through accounting or finance or whatever it is, it gives you, there's an accreditation process with any kind of association membership. However, when you have that on your LinkedIn and when you go for jobs that in your field, it demonstrates a level of professionalism and commitment to your field of work. And it also demonstrates that you've taken the time to get that professional membership in terms of the formal requirements. So it's got a real, it's a place for learning, a place for networking, a place for making new friends, and then of course all the benefits that come from all of that. So this is like a real ding-a-ling-a-ling moment. On the left-hand side, these are all the visible jobs, all right? And so you see them nowadays, there is more jobs in the windows and all those sorts of things. But the fact of the matter is only 20% of jobs are advertised online. And I know this because I know from my own career, I know from those around me, and if you hollered up and down the hallway of any organization and you ask people, how did you get your job here? You will find that the large percentage of them did not get it on Seek. They got it through, they met somebody who then said, send me an email with your resume on it. They met somebody on LinkedIn. It was a friend, it was a neighbor. Then they got involved in their profession, then they studied, and off they went. We are told indirectly in society that, you'll find a job on Seek. You will find a job on Seek, yes, but that may not be how you get your job. So 80% of jobs are hidden. Please, please, please remember this. And I always cringe as I say this, because I'll always share that, I do things that others do, that you guys do, in terms of like, there's been times where I'm like, oh, I wonder what's on Seek. Yeah. But I know that it's my buddies, my colleagues, my friends, my family, older, people that you've worked with in the past, mentors, etc. They're really the ones that are down on it. It's harder early days, trying to before you're really established in your career. However, having said that, I know that as postgraduates, welcome. Lovely to have so many of you guys here. Fabulous. I know that as postgraduate students, I'm always incredibly impressed by our postgraduate students, that you've already done undergraduate degrees. You've got often got wonderful, if you're an international student, you've got wonderful work experience from abroad. And what I see many people do when they transition from one, often people that study postgraduate, they will do something different, is that they forget all of the things that they feel like they just are coming in from a blank slate, and that's not true. And I'll talk more about that a little bit later. If you are, whoever you are and wherever you are in your journey, whatever your background is, whatever your education is that think about these are all the people, and this again has been my experience, both personally and professionally, and what I've seen around me, that it's been others that through volunteering, through the workshops, through etc., etc. So, for example, in my career, so I moonlight here with the Postgraduate Association, but I'm also a lecturer in the Faculty of Business, and often teach professional development and internship. And I can honestly say that every when I'm around and in the team, every term that I teach, there's always a couple of standout students. And I have had times where job opportunities have come across my desk, and I'll say, hey, Claire or Susan or whoever it is, have you thought about this just come through? Would you be interested in applying? If I need to, I'll do a referral. I had it very quickly. I had an instance, well, I say a couple of years ago, it was about 6 or 7 years ago now, where just by chance, I connected 2 former students from different cohorts. One came to tell me she was struggling. She'd had a great time with her career, but she was at a transition point. And the day before, another student had come to me and said, he was based in Sydney, and he said, have you got any grads? She walked in the next day and said, I'm struggling, I need a change. I said to her, wow, that's amazing timing. I connected she put in an application, still applied formally. There was nothing, sinister about it. And she then moved to Sydney and went and worked with this guy in this events company. And I think she was there right up until the pandemic. And so your lecturers, your tutors, I also run here as part of this series, I run one-on-one sessions. They're free sessions that I'll do towards the end of this series. And in those sessions, obviously, I get to know you. I do a 1 hour 1 hour session with you on whatever it is that you want to talk about. My role is just I'm a careers educator here, but to work with you and find out how I can help you with your wherever you're at, whether it's deciding whether to continue to study, to go and do a PhD, to move to Sweden, Hong Kong, stay here, stay in Lismore, move to COFs, whatever it is that you need career related. And the reason I mention that here is because, again, if I see things, if I know you and I see something that might be of interest or relevant for you, I will flick it to you. So please, 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 we'll share more about that at the end, about what we've got coming up. LinkedIn, places like the gym and the club and the sports and all those other things. It's really hard to be proactive, I think, when you're transitioning between work. It's a really vulnerable time, and particularly if Australia is not your country of origin, things, it's culturally it's very different. So please, please, please use the SCU careers team. They're so helpful. Come along to these sessions. We've got 3 more coming up each Friday. And we'll break down each of the things that today is like an overview. Don't rely solely on the computer. Cold calling, telephone. So cold calling can be really tricky. So cold calling means where you just try to find work by looking at organizations that you want and putting yourself out there. I have had a couple of students that have had great success doing that. It requires some pretty sophisticated, ways of connecting with somebody, because often, people are busy and the shutters go down if you say, trying to, cold call somebody. However, I've had 2 examples with, had a law student about a year ago, mature age law student, and she actually got offered a job before she graduated because she knew exactly the company that she wanted to work for. That was incredible, and it was cold calling. And then in another program, there was a young man. He had done an undergraduate degree in, I think it was like arts or business or something. Law. Sorry, but different a different uni, and he was in a real transition. We talked through, we did some stuff in the career space, and he cold called and got a job with, like, he didn't like law. That's why I was a bit confused for a second. He didn't like law. It wasn't a good fit for him, but he wanted to get into more kind of not-for-profits, and he did some cold calling and he got a job that way as well. Trying to reach out the hiring manager. One thing that I do, this will come up more in the classes that come in the next few weeks. One of the things that I'll do, if it's called, I call it career, well, I don't call it, there's actually a term for it. I didn't know that's what that I was doing and what I was training other people to do. It's called career cushioning. And we all need to career cushion, even if you get a nice government job, because there's no nice government jobs. Well, I don't know. I don't want it to be depressing, but because I've given you that example of, it's just not the same. There are still nice government jobs if that's what you fancy, but you still might want to think about career cushioning. And that's where, say you get your undergraduate job, but there's some other organizations or some other teams you want to work for, you see them advertise a job. Don't necessarily apply for the job because you've got the job that you want, but then find that hiring manager on LinkedIn and pop them in your little network. And of course, they won't mind connecting with you because your LinkedIn will say, IT engineering or whatever it is, and they'll know they've just advertised a job for IT engineering. You didn't apply for it, but they'll know that you're adding them to, your list. And then it will sit there, and then your activities, then whatever you do, they get to sort of indirectly see if you post or comment on things, and they get a bit of a sense of you. Then you can loop back, and you've already got that connection there. And they've got a bit of an insight into who you are when you are ready and you want to, you've just done 12 months with KPMG. Elevator pitch, we'll talk more about that later. Opportunities to develop your employability skills. You guys are here, and I would like to ask you to take a minute to think about, what are you most afraid of? Because then I think it relates to a lot of this stuff here. What are you most afraid of right now with your career? What are you most afraid of? Because I want to make sure that I talk to those points so I keep you engaged. You've made the effort, and I'm so, so touched. I love to have my colleague calls them warm bodies. I've got warm bodies in here, and you've made the effort to come and sit into this class. I want to make sure I'm able to deliver on what it is that you want. Please write into the chat box, what are you most afraid of with your career? Or what, alternatively, if that sounds a bit too confronting, or what made you enroll in this unit, in this class today? Because you have made a really big effort to turn up live. So then I can talk to each of those points, and I'll write them down so that I can work through each of them for you. What prompted you? What was the thing that, because we all know, I know how busy we all are today, and I would say I'm 100% committed to professional learning and personal learning, all the rest of it. But I find it, really challenging to get to. I'll often listen to the recordings, but turning out live, we're busy. So I love that you're here and I appreciate it. So please type into the chat box the things, what you'd like most for me to help you with as I proceed for the next couple of hours. Oh, nice. Master of Business in Global and Hotel Leadership. Nice. Oh, video interview. Okay, great. Excellent. I can talk to both of those. Easy. Networking, great. I'm fascinated by your course. It's a really good time on the planet to be involved in a fear of my son. Oh, bless. Yeah, I understand that. I'll reassure you, though, that what I've seen recently is that our international students have actually been doing better than some of our online students, because you engage and you learn the content. Okay, sometimes, like, it's not written, you know, because English isn't the first language, but you actually are finding that international students are getting a better understanding of some of the content. Oh, expect the unexpected. Oh, yeah, and networking. All right. So, networking. Networking is really relationships, and it comes more naturally for some personalities than others, and that can be really tricky, because you know, those that naturally you know, extroverts, and those with you know, those high level social skills, it comes more naturally, and it can be very difficult if you're shy. And so a couple of things that I would think about, or things that I just recently had an amazing opportunity to travel abroad with a couple of the team, or a couple of teams of people that I work with. And it was really fascinating to watch somebody with, there was 3 of us in China, actually, and one had very strong social skills and one didn't. And I learned a lot from watching these people, you know, how that exists in terms of networking and so forth. And what I, you know, if I were to coach the one that could have improved, and he was quite upfront and said that, you know, he because of his personality and his he didn't know how to do it, didn't come naturally to him. So what I would, a couple of things that I would think about if it doesn't, networking doesn't come naturally to you, is to think about body language is a really it sounds a bit silly, and it's, I watched the body language of these 2 colleagues that I was away with. And so, and if somebody has never told you, I would encourage you to ask people around you, whether you give off positive energy and positive vibes, because one of the 2 probably doesn't know that, because he doesn't like to socialize, he gives off a very negative, which means he's less approachable. And so your body language is actually, so that openness, and that, but that can be so hard, I realize, watching when it's not natural for one person. So but more importantly is well, there's 2 things equally important: what you say, and when you are in social situations or places where you are talking with other people in your work, is thinking about how you communicate your experiences and so forth. So the just a lot. But lost a couple of frightened a couple of you there. And so body, and I might be telling you something that you think, oh well, but if you don't know, if you've never asked somebody to give you some feedback on what you're admitting, even if you're in a staff, so because networking for the future may be that you're sitting at home online, and this sort of is a little bit of a segue to the interview question. One of the things that I heard, which was amazing, I heard recently, is that very early on in a video interview, or whether you're in a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting, is that you want to show your hands, because we're wired for danger. And this psychologist, and I thought, oh, really I think they were organizational psychologists. I thought that's an amazing point. They said that if you show your hands pretty early on in that, it shows trust. And trust and rapport are critical to networking and building relationships. Trust is a huge part of networking, but also authenticity and being real about who it is that you are, because people can see, they're less likely to trust you if you're not being your authentic self. And so this really quickly, this slide here are ways and places that you can help build career success. And again, I really understand that nobody wants to do these, but I would say that these are the pathways to success. And again, I would say, if I think about people around, people that I know, people that I admire, people that I would consider to have had their own great success in their careers, they've engaged in these. They do short courses, they go to conferences. Conferences can be expensive, and of course you're not necessarily going to come straight out of school. They're involved in things. They've tried to volunteer in their communities, whatever that may be. They're engaging in things. And there's some recent studies out of Harvard that says that in a busy world, how to manage our well-being, until very recently, the advice was to do less and to rest and all that sort of stuff. And yes, definitely rest is important, but actually what they're saying now is do more. You don't have to do a ton more, but you do a tiny bit of something that you love. So for example, you work for the homeless people once a month, and you spend a couple of hours if you're interested in, social welfare and those sorts of things. And helping others is the top and best way. We're in a really, really selfish, I think, a selfish world. We need to, well, we do and we don't need to be, but we're all human beings trying to do our best on the planet. But the best, if you really, really want to do well, you give back, and you try different things and you help other people. Here are some of the things that employers are saying that they want. Work experience can be one of the hardest things for people to get. And it's kind of like it's a ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling moment for me. And this is where I'll sort of weave it all together, because this workshop is just a snapshot about the key things. However, wherever, whatever work experience, particularly if you're new to Australia, leverage off the other experience in your home country, or if you're younger and you've done undergrad and postgrad. Experience. So what employers tell us that they want is they want to see that you're interested, engaged, that you're doing ongoing learning and development. They want to see some sort of experience, Coles, Woolies, Telstra, anything. They want to see that you're engaged in your communities. They sort of a bit like, which is fair enough. They're a bit like our university students now. University students want to be able to use the module. They want to be able to attend live to a workshop. They want to be able to listen to the recording. They want to be able to listen to the recording whenever they want. They want to be able to access the material anywhere, be on the other side of the world, anywhere, anyhow. And so it's the same for employers in terms of what they want from employees. They want, but don't let this be something overwhelming to you. You can just do a little bit of work experience, a little bit of volunteering, a little bit of extra courses, something for free. And then you've got one extra page on your resume that the person next to you that's just popped out that might have all high distinctions. Yeah, fine. Employers love high distinctions, but they don't just want the high. And I know for a fact they don't just want the high distinction students. I went to listen to some speakers a few years ago that were employing the best graduates in the country. And they were fed up because that sounds terrible, but they were really disappointed actually in the types of, they were getting the HD students, but what they found was that they weren't getting the right candidates that had all of these. They weren't the right fit for the organization, and they weren't getting the scope and the depth. They were getting academic achievers, and there's nothing wrong. Academic achievement is brilliant, but they weren't getting people that had emotional intelligence, that understood cultural diversity, etc., which are critical to success in businesses. So you can just do a little bit, and really just a little bit of each of those things, and then if we come back to where we started this session, we've got something new. So a couple of quick questions for you guys. Type into the chat box, how many pages should a cover letter be? Let's have a go. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. How many pages should a cover letter be? Yep, 1. Well done. Yep, maximum of 1. However, unless they stipulate, so sometimes some health organizations, like in social work, social welfare, some like government they'll say they want 2-page cover letters, but generally 1 pages. Just type into the chat box, what should we put? What are the top things that we should include in a cover letter? Any cover letter. What are the things that you can think of that must go into a cover letter? What must go into a cover letter? Just have a go. Anything that anything you'd like to share? So here in Australia, cover letter, it's 1-pager. Now you'll find that, oh, thank you for sharing. Good. Let's see what yes. Thank you, Yilin. Yes. My features which can make me stand out. So if you think about in 1 year's time, when you've done one LinkedIn course or some other free course that you can find online, you've volunteered once a month, so you've then once a month for 6 months, so there you've got that. You've got your professional membership or your some other membership or some other little course. You've got a part-time job where you work 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week. There you go. You stand out already immediately. As opposed to you spend the next year and you just do your study and you get your HD. Yeah, I'm bored as an employer with just that, because it doesn't tell me some other things that you're interested in, other things that that you're and I say I'm bored, I'm not bored, but I try to put it from the perspective of, well, there's going to be 50 other people with high distinctions and just an undergraduate degree and another degree before it. So you want to think about, but the thing that's really changed working life through doing this working in the work of career work, and listening to what the research and the top people in our field say, is that do more. It's not a new phrase, it's been around forever, but it's the truth and it's the science. Do what you love, even if you can't do it as a career. So if you love skateboarding, go on skateboard, join the skateboarding park, work in the skate shop. You love flowers, go and plant some flowers in your garden and then share them with your neighbor. And all the research on the planet is is moving to this idea that the more we do, the more we connect with other people, and the more we do things that really bring us joy, the better our personal and our professional lives are. So let's think about let's have a look at some of the other things we want to tailor. If you come back to that man from the beginning, our former student who sent out those 500 job ads, he didn't talk about what made him unique as a candidate, his multicultural background, his drive to study in another country and to learn a new language, etc., to overcome the hurdles of adjusting to life on the other side of the world, etc., etc. You want to attention the letter to the, always try to find out who the employer is, the employer's name. I'll talk more about the real nuts and bolts of this. We've got, I think, next week, another workshop more on specifically covers letters and resumes. Relevant, you want to think about everything that is relevant to the job, and then also other things that demonstrate, like if you did a half marathon, that's impressive. Or if you did, I was looking at somebody's LinkedIn in my field last night, and that's always a good way to, if people are doing really well, look at how they frame things. And he spent 2 years abroad, and instead of like saying I went to Hong Kong, Sweden, and Switzerland, he talked about the things that he did while he was there, volunteered here, trekked across here, went overland here. And I was like, wow, that's cool. That's interesting. That's brave. That's gutsy. And so, and then he talked about the work that he did often when we travel, and we work, we travel when we work, or we used to, and you guys will now again that we can travel. Hello, Carrie. So we're just doing cover letters. And so think about stories. People love stories, but super duper importantly, and I'd encourage you to come to our next workshop, because I will be talking about some things that are absolutely critical to success with this, is that you must learn, and it's a process, to find out what the automatic tracking systems, so the AI in recruitment, what they want from your cover letter, as well as what the human being wants. So unfortunately, it is it's more challenging, because you've got to tailor your cover letter for a machine, and you've also got to tailor your cover letter for a human being. So it's a really challenging process, but I'm going to share some things that will be really helpful for you. Make sure that it's formatted. I'll show you a sample in a minute. Make sure that it's formatted nicely, nice big wide, not narrow borders, nice big wide, what's it called? Margins. First impressions. I always suggest putting a hook in the first paragraph, something interesting, something fabulous related to your fabulousness. So, for example, if HD is your thing, or you got a GPA out of 6.5, let them know that in the first paragraph. Or that you've been working in a similar role for 10 years or 2 years or 6 months, or you've just had a fantastic internship experience and that you've really loved it. Now you're excited to take that experience into the next role. Think about the enthusiasm and the joy and the excitement, and communicating that, adding that hook, so they go, wow, that's cool. He or she or they did that. Hook must cause the reader to call for an interview to find out more about you. So you want to create that intrigue, like, wow, that's really cool. That person's really done some interesting things. And even, it's early days yet. So for many of you guys, you can and will become more interesting, because you're going to be doing more. Now from this session things that will make you more appealing: going to that conference, taking that workshop, doing that extra shift at Coles, Woolies, whatever. Be specific about the position you're applying for. You might like to take a screenshot of this. What I can say is SCU, for those of you that came in a little bit later, the SCU, I'll just pop it in the chat again, SCU careers. They've got amazing resources, www.scu careers. Excuse me, they have all sorts of resources in there to help you with a cover letter. They also have tailored resumes, but I'll talk more about that later on. You will find really helpful. This is for a nursing role, but the principles apply for no matter what you are doing. People will often give you the option of including a cover letter. I would always, this is a ding-a-ling-a-ling, ling-a-ling. I'll tell you when there's a ding-a-ling moment, and that's a ding-a-ling moment. Always. Yeah, it's a nuisance. I'll tell you what, writing a cover letter is not fun, but what I will tell you is once you get a hit on your cover letter and a hit on your resume, then you do need to tailor it for every job that you really, really want. But you don't have to start from scratch every time because you've already learned to highlight. You've had a win, you've had a hit, you've got an interview. It means that you're hitting the mark in terms of the AI and you're hitting the mark in terms of your recruiters. Then it shouldn't take you. The first time you do your cover letter and your resume, you've got to work your butt off. Otherwise you end up like the guy at the beginning who sends out 500 applications. It's a false economy to do less work because you end up doing more work sending out 500 applications than you do sending out 10, 20, 30, no, probably no more than 30. And so take the time, and I'm going to give you lots of tools that you can use to help put it together. Use those tools that are out there, but spend the time up front, because even if you go the passive way of just sending out the same old thing, you'll find that you spent more hours. I will go through all of this. I'm conscious of time because this is just a teaser, a taster. My top tips, aside from having is make sure it's formatted beautifully, make sure that there's no spelling and grammatical errors. So you put it through Grammarly. You should have Grammarly. You should be able to have a free account of Grammarly. Put it through Grammarly and make sure that you talk about all of your wins, all your achievements. You've got to write a resume. How many pages should a resume be? I'm going to talk more about cover letters and resumes. I think it's next week. How many pages should a resume be? Ooh. Yeah, good on you, Carrie. Yeah, so these days I would say no more than 3. Everybody's time poor. And I would say for you guys as postgraduate students, new grads, you get away with a really nice, neat, tidy, and tight. And what I mean by tight is 2 full pages with no bits dangling everywhere, not 1.5 pages, but 2 full pages. That would be my suggestion. Perhaps in 5 or 10 years, go for 3. But I think in the climate, the world that we're in, we want to digest information really quickly. I don't know about you, but we all get just so much information now that we want to present it in a succinct manner. 1 can be a little bit, I've seen some fabulous 1 pages. I personally do 2, and I would suggest 2's the happy medium. What else do you think is really, really, really important with your resume? Just type in anything that's super duper important with a resume. What's important with a resume? That's interesting. Yeah, I've got mixed feelings about the available time. It would go in your, and that could be a cultural, because I know different parts of the world do things differently. Some people like to put availability into the cover letter. I generally don't. I go with the proviso that just have them assume you're available. You know, you want the job, you're available whenever you can connect with them. Good try. Excellent. Well done. What else should go in a resume? All right, let me tell you. There's a whole lot to unpack here. I'd love to see you guys next week because we've been really fortunate that those that come to these sessions for a couple of weeks, their career success changes. So, because I want to dive, I haven't got all the time because this is like a quick overview. But essentially, you're going to apply. Most jobs you apply for here in Australia are now like online, but then, as I said, like you might get a friend or family member that will ask you and help you. Maybe you get an email address, maybe you get to apply through LinkedIn. There are other ways. I would always suggest a cover letter, even if it's through a friend of a friend, even if it's an informal process, even when recruitment can be quite informal. I've noticed these days, still take a really formal. Business has gotten a lot less formal, but I would still go for a more formal approach. Selection criteria, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but essentially it forms, a lot of the time you'll address the selection criteria, which is in its simplest form, it's just what they're assessing you on. That goes into the cover letter. But for universities, for government, for some not-for-profits, for the police force, for cybersecurity, for the Air Force, they will need you to address, it's a much more formal process. Oh, my pleasure. Yep, beautiful. Thank you. Take care. Much more formal process. So make sure that what I would suggest is you just follow the instructions. If you want to apply for a job and you've never ever written a selection criteria, then make an appointment. It comes up. Make an appointment with the careers team and they will help you. We won't, next week I'll spend a bit of time on it, or next week or whenever it is coming up. But generally speaking, focus cover letter, resume, and interview. And what I have observed over the years is that the area people need most help in is actually the interview, but they worry about it less, which is fair because your percentages are higher. If you've got to the interview stage, they're really just looking at how you fit within the organization. But a lot of that's around your soft skills. And so we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. And then I'm running a special session on that. But I also find that perhaps students aren't getting the job because they really haven't ever spent the time practicing their interview skills. So then they're wasting their time, all that time and effort that goes into the hours and hours and hours of doing the resume and the cover letter, but they're not rehearsing and practicing for the interview. So just be mindful of that. Here's some top tips for the resume. Make sure that you tailor it always. Part-time casual jobs, 2 pages, 2 to 3 pages. Make sure that you use the same formatting and font. There's lots and lots of templates. Here's a ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling moment. I would use the Seek. Seek has a template, resume template. Do not use the LinkedIn one that you can download, because the automatic tracking systems, which is really ironic, hate them. It looks really nice. Do not use Canva. They have some really nice resume templates. The automatic tracking systems hate them. Do not use Canva or Canvas, whatever it is, one of the two. But you might like to, one of my favorite ones is I don't have any affiliation with this organization. It's a recruitment company in Sydney. They've been around forever. They have a really good template that I've suggested to many people. It's my favorite. So if you go onto hayes.com and then you can, I think you go into their careers section and then they've got, it's cover letter templates in there. And as I said, several people have used that. Resume Worded, here's a ding-a-ling moment. Resume Worded will check your resume with an automatic tracking system and be horrified at how low your score will be. And I'm only saying that is because I've sent career practitioners and multiple professionals into that arena there, and they've died of horror because you need to have a human being and you need AI to check that it likes your resume. And you can put your resume through I don't have any affiliation with this organization either. You can put it through there 12 times, or certainly that's as many as I could get it up to without it asking for you to pay. If you get your resume into Resume Worded and you can get it up to a score of 85%, you are home free. Well, there's a really good chance that if you apply for a job through Seek, you will at least get an interview with that. That's a top tip. Here are the things, but earlier I asked the things that you should make sure you have on your resume. Some of you guys might not have it yet. You may not have done any other training. You haven't yet got your professional membership. You may not need it initially, but it will help you later on. You may not yet have any experience, but you will already have lots and lots of key skills and achievements. That's what we'll be working on. I'll be unpacking those with you next week to help you identify. Also, I can do that in one-on-one sessions with you for you to find out, well, what makes you unique? How am I going to sell myself? That's part of the process. You might like to take a screenshot of this. At the end of this 4-week series, I email out all of the slides from all the workshops, and also this recording is available all the time. It goes into YouTube. Your resume should look something like this. I really like, and it works really well, having some sort of key skills and achievements section. This guy's put it under his study, which I think is a really, really good idea because it's framing it around the current story of study. And it can be a really good way to fatten up if you haven't got lots of work experience. You can fatten it up around what you're learning in your study. Here are some other things that, of course, you may not, well, not of course, but you may not yet have got. But again, I'm also very conscious, or you have. I mean, I've met wonderful, you're all wonderful. Yeah, wonderful as far as I'm concerned. But I've met people in all various different stages of their professional lives. So just be wherever you're at, and know that, you can, when you do well, you can add that. When you get some more wins around sporting achievements or things that you've fixed or groups you've been involved in at the university or projects you've worked on at uni or your GPA or, you're working the body shop and you've got employee of the month, or you've achieved your sales target. Automatic tracking systems is probably one of the things that this actually makes me quite sad, because I think that there are, no doubt, I dare to think how many Australians are isolated, lonely, confused, and have mental health issues because they don't know that actually it's a computer that's judging them and not a human being. It can feel really disheartening. Rejection, some people don't manage rejection really well. And the reality is that for the large percentage of the application process, until you get down to, closer to the culling process, it's a machine that doesn't like you, okay? And there's nothing wrong with your experience. You just haven't yet learned how to convince the machine. Use keywords, and I'm going to talk more about all of this. Take out any formatting. It hates formatting. Use the SCU. resume tools, use the Seek ones or use the Haze ones. Don't put any fancy borders in there. Use simple. Simple is best. Use the sample resumes on this landing page here. There is so many wonderful, it's a little bit clunky, or I shouldn't say that, but it's a little bit clunky to drive around in there. But once you get in and you figure out where things are, there's lots of amazing resources in there for you. Let's just take 5 minutes, and we're going to come back and talk about the interview. And then I want to hear more about other things that I want to make the last part of this session a bit more chatty, rather than me talking to you for 3 hours, but just to find out more, like ask me questions, click your mic on, because no doubt the questions you guys are going to have, others are going to have. We're going to unpack each of these areas over the next couple of weeks and dive into much more detail. So I want to take 5 minutes now. We'll see how many questions you guys have, but we probably will end up finishing up a little bit early. We'll see how we go for time. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Don't go away. Drum roll, the interview is one of the areas where I find needs the most work. So see you soon. All right, just one more minute, and then I'm going to quickly go into the interview bit, and then I want to turn it into a little bit of a chat. No pressure, but I just love that I've got you here, and I want to make sure that I talk to the points that worry you the most. All right. Okay, let's go. So the interview, I think it was Stephanie, I think, online. Actually, just before, we'll come back to that. Video interviews are likely to be the norm. I foresee into the future rather than the old school physical. Employers, it's easy for employers, etc. So they can get through lots of them, etc., etc. If it's a video interview, that there's lots of different formats. Sometimes there's many different variables. Sometimes it's really tricky, like they'll email you like 10 minutes beforehand. You've only got 10 minutes to prepare. Sometimes you're given a link and you will go in there, and then the interview questions will pop up on the screen, and you've got to do it that way. So it depends on the nature of the role, the type of organization, the size, the scale, and also how many other people are applying, because it can be used at, like video interviews can be used as a culling. It can be like basically AI assesses you the first time, and they take 50 people and then they put them through that, and then that assesses you based on your responses, and then you get a human being after that. What I would suggest to prepare and to cover yourself for everything for your future with your interview, however it may look. And you can start this now or whenever you like. And like you'll find that often I'll share things that I do myself, is get a A4 piece of cardboard, and I would draw some, and we'll talk about this in a minute. Like you could break it into, I've never thought about this until just now, but you could actually do it this way. You could break it down the middle, and you could put like your employability skills, right, down one side, and then examples of how you've gained those employability skills, and I'll talk more about them in a minute. And then the technical skills that are specific to the role. And I'll explain more about what all of that means. But one of the things that I see is a huge gap in what people have, but what they feel, where they become vulnerable but don't realize they have so much, is that as postgraduate students, domestic or international, but just as postgraduate students and somebody over the age of 19 or 20, you have lived experience of all sorts of things in life that have given you a whole ton of employability skills. And so having a ton of employability skills is half the job done. And what so I was just saying, whoever it was that just popped back in again, is just grab it. We're talking about preparing. This is actually a really good way. You can use this big piece of cardboard. I've thought about doing this, and perhaps next year that's what I'll do, is to do some more really hands-on activities. So you've got some real take-homes. Is that, in fact, let's do it. We've got time now. Employability skills, just so you know what you're going to do. I'm going to get you to write 3 and 3. Employability skills are skills that we have for work that equip us essentially to remain employable in our work. So they're things like problem solving, time management, teamwork, communication, detail even things like, well, there's soft skills, but, you know, optimism, I can't think, resilience, the list goes on. So what I'd like you to do is to think about just, and then you've got technical skills that relate specifically to the role that you're going to go into. So if you're doing environmental science, you've got, you know, mapping skills, or if you're a nurse, you know how to do a cannula, insert a cannula, for example. So what I'd like you to do is to write down 3 skills, 3 employability skills that you have that equip you for work. And the employability skills, in fact, was actually just back here on one of these slides. There's a little bit about employability here. Three employability skills. Generic, non-technical, transferable skills. And these are absolutely critical. And what employers, and I think this is something that perhaps students don't really know, is that employers actually say to us they can teach people the technical skills, but it's a lot harder to teach people employability skills. So it's harder to teach people to, like, if somebody's not very good at working with other people, it's a lot harder to teach them. This is what employers tell us. It's a lot harder to teach them to get along with people than it is to teach them how to insert a cannula, just as an example. If people lack emotional intelligence in the workplace, it's a lot harder to teach somebody to not have, you know, angry outbursts and get cross with other people, as an example. So what I'd like you to do is write down 3 employability skills that you have, and then where and how you gained them, okay? So type them into the chat box. So it can just be teamwork. You could just put teamwork and then put dash in my undergraduate degree because you had to work in groups, or emotional intelligence, working in retail, or emotional intelligence, working in hospitality, or drive and commitment from completing my undergraduate degree, or drive and commitment relocating to Australia, communication skills from your babysitting, nannying. So write down 3 employability skills that you have, and where you got them from. It might be problem solving. God, you'd get that working in retail or hospitality or babysitting or volunteering. God, imagine working for UNICEF right now. Whew. You'd be problem solving for every second of that voluntary role. Ongoing upskilling might be you got that at McDonald's. They're very, very good at teaching people how to improve their communication skills. How does this relate to the interview? Well, because you're going to be talking about it. You're going to be talking about it everywhere. Everywhere. Oh, nice one. Oh, yes, thank you for the love with the resume worded. That's great. Yeah, you'll love that. It's one of my top tips. Oh, empathetic. Nice one. Empathy is an incredible. Oh, if we all had more empathy, we wouldn't have war. So I think that's an incredibly powerful one to acknowledge. Particularly, you know, you're going to go into a workplace with people who have disabilities, different cultural backgrounds, different trauma, very different perspectives. They may have different political perspectives. So being able to be empathetic and to just listen, courageous and vigilant. Nice. And you know what? If I saw those words on a job application, I'd be like, hello, welcome aboard to the team. Critical thinking, fantastic. You get that at university. Patience. Wow. Yes. And some family members were just sharing the other day that one of the things that their hobbies is they like to surf and they like to fish. And employers are curious about people's hobbies. And this family member said, it's taught me about patience. You've got to wait for a wave and you've got to wait for a fish. And patience is, gosh, patience is a great virtue to have. Listening, brilliant, love it. Teamwork, oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, you might be brilliant at putting a cannula in, but if you can't work to, you know, the cannula gets stuck or the PowerPoint doesn't work or whatever it is around that, and you've got to work with somebody else to solve that problem, yikes. Doesn't matter how good you are at inserting a cannula. Optimism, absolutely fabulous. Unending learning, I love it. So again, employers love, and the reality is for all of us, no matter what stage or age or background or degree we're doing, is career success, that's under the top tiers. Because if you keep learning and you keep trying to learn about things you like and that light you up and give you energy, give you feel lighter and more engaged and more inspired, you will find that this whole world open up to you, because then you find more things that you like. And like, you know, maybe you listen to a podcast that you really enjoy, and then it'll give you like an option to listen to another podcast. It's like, that also is similar to what you like. And then you learn about something else. And then suddenly you're like, you were listening to true crime. And then suddenly you're listening to, you know, spy series. And then suddenly you're thinking about the spies in France. And then suddenly you're traveling to France for an exchange. That's how it goes. Beautiful. Excellent. Anybody else want to share? And then suddenly you're in France and you meet your husband or your wife. And then you end up really loving it there. And then you go on to live in France for a couple of years. Then you come back to Australia. And then everybody wants to talk to you about is how you lived in France. And then France helps you get a better job. And then you get a better job. And then you get a better car. And then you, not necessarily the better car and the better job, but they say that a good income, I'm just going to slide. They just did some research. Harvard University just did some research about happiness and money. And I think it was Harvard or one of the big universities in America, happiness and money. And what they found is that when people make good money, good to very good money, not excellent, but very good to, so when they're very comfortable, they are actually, their well-being is better. But when they make too much money, they don't have good well-being. All right, so the interview. Here's a couple of quick questions for you. When it comes up on the screen, you can type into the chat box. Is it better to be underdressed or overdressed for an interview? True or false? Better to be underdressed or overdressed? True or false? What do we got here? Actually, the other way around. I know, it's Australia. Unfortunately, it's actually better to be overdressed. They say dress for the job you want, not dress for the job that you're going to have, not for the job you want, not the job you have. Close though. The first 90 seconds of an interview will largely impact how successful you'll be for the interview. True or false? Good try, Yelin. True. That's it. First impressions. And remember, if you've got an online interview, show your hands within the first minute. It's better to talk about a technical area of weakness than a personality issue. True or false? Yes, it's definitely better to talk to, and I think that raises and reminds us of a really interesting point. It really highlights how important those social and softer skills are around our personalities and how we respond and act in particular environments. It's better not to ask questions at the end of the interview than to ask one or two. Oops. It's better to not ask any questions at the end of the interview. False. Well done. Nice. Asking what the salary level is in the first interview is a good idea. True or false? Yeah, so it's best not. I mean, some practitioners might. The it's a tender one. I mean, what people most want to know, sadly, is the most thing that employer don't want to tell you. Most people want to know how much they're going to get paid, and you have every right to know how much you're going to get paid. But it demonstrates that all you care about money is, but then also the reality is most people want to make sure they're going to get enough money before they go and start a job. So it's a bit of a tricky one. I would, what you can do is when you apply for a job like online, or try to find out before you get to the interview stage, the approximate price range, then you don't have to really be focused on that. Also, you want to think about negotiation skills, and you want to, if there is and it certainly seems to be more of the approach these days, is that what employers want to do, in essence, they want to get the best people for the least amount of price, but you want to get the best job that suits you for the maximum amount of money. So you've got to find a place to meet. And then you've got to know where you stand in terms of what you bring to that role versus what the other candidates do. And so my suggestion would always be, in terms of positioning yourself, they may have given you a price range. I would never go to the lowest, never go to the middle, but never go to the top. So you just go just below the top of the asking range, but never the top, and definitely not the middle, and definitely not the bottom. So that, because then they're going to negotiate down. And so if you've gone the middle, then you're going to go less than what you want or deserve. If you go top, they want to get rid of the people that are asking too much. And so that would be my suggestion. Is it better to talk more about what I have done than what I've achieved? Is it better to talk more about what I have done than what I have achieved? It is better. False. That's right. Yeah, you want to talk about achievements. So you don't want to talk about, people get really caught up in telling them what, like, I was a waiter, so I waited on tables, I carried the plates to the kitchen, I took people's orders, I washed dishes I washed the dishes, I handed people cash. Most employers will know what the job is. They want to know how well you did it. So I got commended all the time because I was really good with the customers. I was really accurate with the cash handling. I clean the tables really efficiently. At the end of the night, I close the store securely, etc. Sending thank you notes. Send a thank you. Should you send a thank you note? We'll just skip one of these. Should you send a thank you note after the interview? Sending a thank you note is well regarded. True or false? True. Yeah, nice. All right, beautiful. Okay, so just a couple of things. I've talked a bit about some of this. Dress. What I would suggest is look at how they're dressed. Use eye contact, good posture, firm handshake. Be on time, I would say. Be early, be early, be early. Interview preparation, general tips, research. Always try to find out as much about them before you go in. Remember their names, who the interviewers are. Check out, see if you can get all the technical stuff sorted. Check the lighting, the sound. Super duper 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 important. If you're sitting in a dark room, it just makes you look a bit dodgy. So you want to make sure the background's really light. You want to make sure you can see head and shoulders, and you want to make sure that you're wearing business attire. That's probably the most likely place that you're going to be interviewed. Make sure that you've read the job advertisement, that you've prepared. Make sure you wear the clothes appropriately. I would always just suggest covering up your arms, both for men and women. This is what they're looking for. They want to see how you work in a team. They want to see how you respond to things. They'll give you scenarios, situations. They want to know how you solve problems. They want to know how excited you are. I would say, and also that first chitter chatter that you have when you first get in there, how's your morning going? Isn't the weather nice? That rapport building, they say, is how well you do that rapport building in the initial bit, like, hi, hello, really, I'm so excited to be here. That bit, like really showing them your enthusiasm, that actually gets you the job more so than how perfectly you answer all the questions after that. So what are talking about your skills, your strengths, why you want to work for them, not just the money, and how it aligns with your future. SCU has some wonderful resources that you can use to practice. Next week, we've got cover letters, resumes, and I will be doing a much deeper dive into specifically those, so that you can beat and LinkedIn as well. So I haven't talked about LinkedIn at all today. A couple of you still left here. We do have plenty of time. I know we used to run this in 2 hours, and then we made them longer because we found that students often had a lot of questions. So we can stay as long or as short it is. I noticed that a few, so the two of you guys here, so Wilson and Yilin, what questions, what haven't I answered for you that's like a burning question? What would you like to know more about? Anything? Oh, I've got plenty of time. Oh, here we go. Good. I'm in a quandary about, I'm a student in a Master of Teaching. Okay, pretty new about Australian culture, to be honest. Okay. All right, cool. Okay. So what course are you doing, Kay Wilson? And so a Master of, is it primary teaching, Yulin, or is it that the main thing for a teaching qualification here in Australia, we are desperate for teachers. Oh, that's right. Okay, yep. And Master of Hospitality. Okay, amazing. So I'll just talk first to the point. But in fact, it relates to both of these degrees that you guys are studying. Is that you get built in your degree, I think, Kay Wilson, yours will have some sort of choice for internship. I would get the way to learn, I'll track back a little bit, the way to learn about Australian culture is to hang out with Aussies, but really work is the best and easiest way. The wonderful thing for both of you guys at the moment in the professions that you're going into is that we have a skills shortage here in Australia, in the hospitality sector and in the education sector. And so we are desperate for more teachers, and we are desperate for professionals in the hospitality arena. And so for you, Yilin, with your, do you have to do some sort of, there's built-in placement, I hope and assume, with yours? Oh, you do have a fabulous sense of humor. I love it. And humor will get you everywhere. I love it. Fabulous. Well, you know what? Do both. Do whichever. Start with the fish and chips, and then I loved it. Fabulous. I love it. Yes, another is a kindergarten teacher. Yeah, so I mean, your fish and chip job will get you the kindergarten teacher job, and your kindergarten teacher job will make you suitable for a fish and chip job. So either way, because one can lead to the other. The main thing about Australian culture, sadly, in terms of employment, is that we're getting better. As a nation, we're very Australian centric in terms of what sort of experience we value. So as soon as my top tip for learning about Australian culture and for building a career here would be, as soon as you can, to get involved in anything that you can, work, volunteering, anything, work in the cafe on the campus, hang out in the student association, do any short courses, do your first aid, do anything that you can attend or go to through the uni. Whereabouts are you, which campus are you both located at? Oh, that's great. Oh, good on you, Yearling. Amazing. Fantastic. Well, the great thing, Brisbane, that makes it a little bit harder. Well, on one hand, it makes it great, Kay Wilson, for work, because there's a bigger employment field there. But whenever you can go to campus and to meet people on the campus, do you have to attend either you have to, it's compulsory for you to attend face-to-face classes? Yeah. So really make that effort, because that will also help you. And I know how easy it is to just kind of like hang out in your pajamas 1 hour later. Yeah. And to snuggle up, and especially when you don't know the culture. And but the more you go, the more you engage, the more, I think what I'm really learning is that more that we engage and push ourselves through getting out of the comfy jammies and getting out, particularly post-pandemic, getting back out in the world again, the more we get engaged, the more energy we have, the more better our mental health is, etc., etc. So that would be, and that's the way to learn about the culture, and then find anything and everything that you can do to do something here in Australia, even if for a short period of time. Like I heard about this guy that landed in, he was an academic, and he landed in Wuhan just before the pandemic, and he was shut down, like living there for 2 years. And what he did was he learnt Chinese, and he could, well, he was by himself, so he enrolled in something on and like literally taught himself Chinese in 2 years, and he just made the most of that situation. And so he learnt it so well, so that my colleague was saying that when we were over there, he presented the class in Chinese and in English in written form, but he wasn't from China. So my point with that is do as much as you can to, and then also if Australia is somewhere that you guys have, what country are you from, Kay Wilson? You guys have done huge hurdle and overcome enormous challenges to arrive here as an international student, which I learn more and more that I spend time with postgraduate international students, is that that's a huge feat in itself. Indonesia, oh, amazing. Well done. Well, welcome, a huge welcome to both of you guys. And Yelena, you're from China? Yeah, nice. Beautiful. I really enjoyed being hosted by your country of origin. Beautiful, 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 kind people. Really, really enjoyed myself. Yeah, and so if you can see, I see it in you. I see what you've already overcome to come to be here. That's not easy. But what we're finding here in Australia is that employers are starting to recognise the value of our international visitors, because they know you want it, but more, they know you want it more so than some of our domestic counterparts. And so for example, this year, last term, and it happened the term before, but particularly last term, I had an international cohort and a domestic cohort. The international cohort hands down beat the because you guys did the work. So from an employer's perspective, they're starting to realize that you guys are really hard workers. You don't complain often, and you really want the work. So being able to communicate that in everything that you do, but learning as much about life here through your placement. So if you don't get a formal placement, Kay Wilson, see if you can, all the hotel chains up on the Gold Coast and in Brisbane, probably more relevant for you for Brisbane, but some of the top end there, they're all desperate for staff. And I'm not sure of what have you got some hospitality experience already? Oh, many hotels in the area. Awesome. So perhaps the best thing to do is to start working. Next week, we're going to start working. You haven't got a job yet, Kay Wilson? Oh, awesome. Amazing. Great. As many of you got, brilliant. Not yet currently. Okay, fine. No, that's okay. It takes a little bit of time. Great. Okay. So now next week, we're going to be doing cover letter, resume. So bring your cover letter and your resume along. And then if you need to, either of you guys need to work with me, and I'll have a look at what you're doing and then help you tweak it so that then you're all ready to go. Oh, banking, business. So I would be really focusing on, so banking, you need to be persuasive. Yeah. Business, need to be persuasive. You need to work with customers, customer relations, all of that is hospitality. You can do that. Logistics, getting a tour group checked into a hotel, that's logistics. Amazing. Yeah. Marketing, people skills. Excellent. Oh, well, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to our next session. Hopefully, you guys can come, and I'm going to try to get people to put their cameras on. our next session, so then I can see. Maybe you guys have got, no, you haven't got your cameras on. And then we can, then I just get to know you a little bit more when I can see you. I'm so pleased. Thank you for hanging in there with us today. We had a little bit of a bumpy ride at the beginning there. Let me see. TY. What does TY mean? Oh! I'm so far behind the 8 ball. Oh, that's been a pleasure. You guys are just lovely, and I hope that I have some time with you next week. And then if you need that one-on-one, we can connect. And then the following week, so we're going to be talking about LinkedIn, which would be useful to learn about that. It's not critical for, immediately. Probably already got, if you Kay Wilson, you probably already got your LinkedIn. Give you some tips on how to use that. I've spent the last couple of years watching behavior on there, so I'll share a lot of the things that that I've been kind of collating in my head around things that I've seen work really well in that environment, and things that kind of isolate people, or perhaps kind of give a negative impression in that environment. So I'm looking forward to sharing all of that with you. Do you have any other questions? I'm conscious we've still got plenty of time if there's something. We'll see you guys hopefully next week. I know it's kind of hard sitting here in an online environment, so thank you so much for sitting here with me, cheering this. And if you guys are awesome, thank you. And if anybody's listening at home, we'll be back next week. We're going to be here for the next couple of weeks doing these sessions. Please, we'd love to have you live here, then I get to know you guys. And thanks for being here. Take good care. Have a lovely weekend. It's almost the weekend, which is fabulous. I hope you're doing something something special, and take good care of yourselves. All right. Thank you so much. See you guys. Bye.